Hello everyone, my name is Bendy, and today I'm going to play the opening few minutes of Songs of Six and show you how I like to start off my cities in the hopes of helping you get started in your own. Now, none of this is going to be optimal play. For example, there's always going to be a better way to do things, and you should really experiment and try and find what works best for you. But this is how I like to start off my games. So, if we look at this list here, I'll just talk through these for you. The size criteria just affects the world map. It does not affect your city map, so you can leave it on small if you like. Or if you're really insane, you can go all the way up to huge and try and conquer the entire world on a huge map, which would probably take you forever, but Godspeed. Now, you have latitude, starting race, and raids after that. So latitude is going to affect the temperature of your world. For example, northern is going to be colder, southern is going to be warmer overall, but we're going to leave it on normal for now so that we have an average map to work with. Starting race is just going to affect the initial 10 people you start your city with. You can still have all the other races immigrate regardless of what you choose here, so just pick your favorite, I guess. I'm going to go with Dondorians because I'm a big fan of dwarf people, but you can go with Cretonians or Garthemi or human, whatever you like. I'm just going to stick with the classic for now. Raids is going to affect the frequency with which you get raided. I'm going to leave it on few because I do like the odd raid. I don't like too many. You can turn it all the way up to lots if you're insane. Or you can turn it off if you just want to build a city peacefully, but we're going to leave it on few for now. So, there's a few criteria I look for when I'm starting a nice, easy city. I don't feel like too much of a challenge. So you're going to want to bear in mind the climate, right? So whenever you mouse over it anyway, you can see in that little information window that pops up, it's going to say climate temperate if you're in the middle of the map here. If we go up north, it's going to say climate cold. It's going to say that all the way down to about here, and where the cutoff point is. And if we go down south, it's going to say warm. If we go down south enough, yeah, there you go, towards the very bottom. But then this whole center portion of the map is going to be temperate, which is going to be not too hot, not too cold. It's going to be just right. Now, the next thing I'm looking for is a nice high fertility area that has some nearby mountains, and it has a river and some trees. Because we're going to need all those things to produce our own stuff in the early game, right? So if we... Oh, actually, this spot here might be ideal, you know. Look at that. We got a river running straight through here. We can overlap these mountains, and we can get some of these trees on the left there in as well. It's only got an average fertility of 79%, which isn't that high. So you can try and shop around and try and find something higher if you like. Like over here, for example, might... Oh, no, that's even worse. Well, let's see here. Let's see if we can find something a little better. So that's not great. Oh, this is not a high fertility world, is it? Yeah, you can get unfortunate map gens like this, but I'm sure we'll find something better. Here, look at this. This is nice 86% right there. Ooh. Perhaps I'm just being too picky. Alright, we'll ditch the mountains for now, but just bear it in mind for later. Dondorians in particular very much like living in mountains. So to see where the highest fertility is at a glance, you can just look for the darker green areas. We'll go for somewhere like this, right here. Like there, we got a nice forest, we got that river going through the middle. It's got an average fertility of 87%. It's going to be quite nice. Alright, so once we have our city map here, we can start looking around for exactly where we want to put our throne. I like to build near some of these green squares. For example, if you zoom right the way out like this, you can see many green squares, lots of little red squares as well. And what these indicate are the presence of natural resources. So red is going to indicate things like ores, things like gems, coal, all that kind of stuff, where you can build mines to harvest those resources. Green is going to indicate slightly more temporary wild resources. For example, if we zoom in a little bit more, and we hold down the right mouse button, we're going to get an overlay that's going to show us all these things. For example, here we can see all these vegetables right there, and if we remove our right mouse button, you can barely see them, so they're very hard to see without the overlay, right? So be sure to use it. And we can track down all these different deposits. We can see here we've got some wild grain, we've got some wild vegetables. Down here we've got some wild cotton, so this is going to be a decent spot to start. Got some fruit over here, so I think we'll start in this area along the riverbank here. I'm going to put our throne down, say, in this open area right there. Yeah, just adjacent to those, right near the river. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plan out my initial city, and then I'm going to cut until it's finished. Alright, I'll talk you through what we're doing, and then we'll cut to all the buildings being finished, and I can talk you through what to do with each of them at that point. So a neat little trick you can do right at the start here is, this is your throne right here, and it's inside this nice building. But what we can do is go to infrastructure. You can hit move thrown, or you can throw that outside. You don't have to do this, but it can save you some time and resources in building your first warehouse, which is what I like to use it for. So I'm going to select warehouse here. I'm going to fill that out. We're going to put ourselves some crates in here. And that's going to go a bit quicker because we won't have to build any of the walls or anything like that. It's just a nice little way to save yourself some time right at the start. This is going to give us about 12 crates, which should be more than enough to be getting on with, right? The next thing we're going to plan out is we're going to go to agriculture here. We're going to build a hunter. The hunter is a very nice early game option for generating a few different resources. Hunters will go out from the hut here and they're going to hunt down all the wildlife. You can zoom out here and see them here. They're these white dots. If we zoom in, here are some aurochs. They're going to give us some leather and meat. If we go over here, there's more aurochs. There's a lot of aurochs on this map. There's some Denoris. They're going to give us eggs and meat. Over here, that's more Denoris. So this is going to be a good map for making some money on using the Hunter's Hut. And here we have some onks, I think they're called, which is going to give us cotton. So let's plan out a Hunter's Hut here. I'm going to go ahead and put in, say, 4 benches, just like that. And we can probably fit in a 5th one, but I think I'll leave that space for auxiliaries, which is going to raise the efficiency of our workshops a little bit. If we put those in like that, we have a nice 100% efficiency. And we've got 4 hunters benches in here that are going to let us send out 4 people at any given time. We'll put 2 either side like that. If we wanted to, we could put a door in like this. You can go sideways like that, and they can travel sideways. It's going to let them get into the warehouse from the hunter's hut directly. It's going to save a little bit of time. And we'll go ahead and hit construct on that as well. Now, the next thing we're going to need, and I'll tell you why, is we're going to need an import depot, and I'll put that right here, maybe out front, yeah, just out front of the warehouse, like that. Right nearby, because this is all very temporary. You'll be able to come back and refit this later. So we'll just go with that for now. We'll go with the... we've already got an import depot. We're going to go with an export depot as well. We're going to draw that out to be roughly the same size. Doesn't matter all that much when we're just starting. We'll go ahead and put that like that. Make it nice and symmetrical, or about as symmetrical as we can anyway. That's going to be a decent size. We'll hit plus on that. Now the reason we're building these things, I'll explain more in depth later, but the reason we're building these things is we aren't going to be able to produce everything we need to get started on our own, at least not in a timely fashion. For example, if we zoom out here, we can see that our nearest clay is way over here, and we could have built close to that if we wanted, but we then, to turn that into pottery for our first eatery, we'd need to build a mine there to make clay. We'd need to build the potter to turn it into pottery. We need to set up all these different industries just to build an eatery right at the start, which isn't necessary at all, right? So we're gonna leave that like that. And then we're gonna build ourselves, just because we can, we're gonna build a well right next to these things. Just say put it there. It doesn't really matter where you put the well, as long as it's nearby, right? So I'm gonna let this play out. I'm going to let them harvest all these things, build all these constructions. We're going to fell a few trees to make sure we have the wood and stone for it. Yeah, grab that. See, look around for some rocks. There's a couple. There's not that many rocks here. I would have liked a few more rocks nearby, but this map doesn't have all that many rocks. I suppose there's a few over there, but this will be fine for getting on with. And we're going to let that play out for the time being. And then I'll see you guys when they're all finished. Alright, we finished our initial few structures here, so now I can talk you through what each of these things is going to do and how it's going to help us get started. So we've got our warehouse, and in here we control exactly what we're going to store in all the individual crates. We've gotten one set for stone and wood already, and one for the food rations we brought with us. What we also want to do is set one for fruit. We're going to want to set one for the meat that our hunter's hut is going to generate. We're going to set one for cotton, again for the hunter's hut, leather, livestock, and eggs. And that means this is going to hold pretty much everything that our hunter's hut is going to generate, because we're going to want to sell a lot of it at the export depot to fund our further expansion. So we're going to close that out now, and that's fine. We've got plenty of crates left over if we want to store other things. Now we go to our hunter's hut, we're going to max this out, We can set it to 4 using this design, but we can adjust that depending on the size of your own hunter set. It's generally a good idea to just max it out, because it's not going to be useful forever. Now, the next thing, we're going to want to get a more steady supply of workers coming in. You can see here we've got one Dondorian waiting, and we can double click this button to allow him in. He's going to wander in from off the map. But a little thing a lot of people don't know is you can go to the citizens menu up here and click on whichever race we want. We're going to do Dondorians for now, just because they're my favorite. And these here, these little meters that show the fulfillment we're gaining from these various things, you can click on these to gain new options. On some of them anyway. Population here, for example, we can control exactly how many immigrants we want to let in, or we can click auto to automatically allow all new immigrants in as soon as they apply. So if we leave that now and someone applies, they're immediately going to come join the town, which is exactly what we want at this stage. We don't want to have to keep clicking on this all the time. The next thing is we're going to go to the import depot and we're going to select pottery. Now the reason we want pottery is because we want an eatery, which is under food here, and that's going to get us a lot more satisfaction from our food. They're going to want to create tasty meals and eat those, and they'll get way more happiness out of it. We can see that in the citizens menu. If we go here, you can look at services, you can look at food, and see exactly how their various criteria are being met, see how their happiness is being derived. You can see they're very happy right now because we just started, because happiness scales with your population, but that won't be the case as our population grows, so an eatery and other services are going to be a little more necessary. Then we're getting the next thing is we're going to want to choose what we want to export to pay for that pottery, right? We're going to go into this list, scroll down, find eggs. We're going to set a crate in our export depot for eggs. We're going to find cotton. I'm going to set a crate for that as well. And we're going to find leather. I'm going to set a crate for that too. And what that means is as our hunter's hut goes out, hunts animals, produces these resources and brings them back, they're going to be taken to the export depot, and traders from across the world are going to come with their little caravans. They're going to come to this export depot, load up, and they're going to give us money in exchange for those. We have a little more control over our imports and exports. On this goods screen here, we can set thresholds for exactly when we want to buy and sell these things. For example, here, I can set this meter here. By default, it's set to 100%, which means if our import depot is set to buy eggs, it will buy them as soon as we have below 100%. It'll try and fill our storage, but we don't really want to buy eggs, so we may as well put that down to 0. It's not going to make a difference since our import depot isn't set to buy eggs, but we can do that if we want. We can also set it to start selling eggs when our stock is over 90%, or we can set it to never sell eggs if our stock is above 100%, which it can't be, obviously, so dragging it all the way to the left is akin to turning off exports for that thing temporarily, right? We just want to sell them. I just thought I'd bring this to your attention so that you know you can actually influence these things rather than them just always selling everything, right? We're going to play this out for the minute. We're going to have our workers here. We're going to assign a few to the warehouse so that people will be dedicated to that task, and we'll let them go out and hunt things, load up the warehouse, and then from there the export depot. We can just wait a little minute. We can start see them. You'll start seeing them. There we go. Pile things up at the export depot here. Now, if we keep an eye on this, we would eventually see this an outbound number change, which means a caravan is inbound to pick up these things. It might take a little while though. If we go to the world map here, you can see all the different cities. There's one over here, for example. This is ours, I believe. Where is ours? Yeah, this is ours. And it is ours, right? Yeah. And we have to have caravans come from these other cities. They have to physically cross the map to reach us, and it's going to take a little while. So just bear that in mind. Trade isn't instant, and it will take a little bit to happen. So we just let them finish loading this up. As they pick more goods, we're more likely to get caravans a little faster. Let's see here. They're just going to run around and chase off all these herds. And eventually we'll start building up a stockpile of meat here. You can see here already we've actually filled half a crate with meat already, and that's the value of a hunter's hut in the early game, is you can feed a lot of people off the back of a few hunters. Just bear in mind that while animals will respawn over time, it is very slow, so the hunter's hut is not going to be all that useful for very long. Eventually you are going to chase them so far away, there's going to be so few left, that it's not going to be viable. So when that happens, you're going to want to make sure you have farms set up, right? So if we click this little eyeball up here underneath the minimap, that's going to let us select things like harvestables, like that. That's going to permanently enable that overlay we saw earlier. The right mouse button does exactly the same thing, but it shows a few more things. We can click Fertility, and what that's going to do is bring up this very, very bright overlay. And the darkest spots in this overlay are lower fertility, the brightest spots are higher fertility. You can see there's a lot of high fertility land. You can practically see the river right here, because the river always has higher fertility land bordering it, which makes it a fantastic place to put our starting farm. So since we have fruit in storage already, we might as well start with a fruit farm. Dondorians aren't particularly fond of fruit, but, you know, we gotta give them something healthy, right? You can't just live off eggs and meat. I mean, you absolutely can in the World of 6, but we'll go with a 16 by 8 farm, because that's a nice little 1 or 2 man farm right there. And that's gonna help us get a more permanent supply. If we turn that off now, we can go looking for a few other things. For example, here we can see some vegetables. I'm gonna go in here, I'm gonna click Harvest Wild Vegetables. I'm gonna harvest a few of these so that we have enough for a farm of that as well. Our little guys are going to harvest that. If we set a crate to hold those, they'll bring those back, and this is a fantastic way of feeding your people while you're waiting for your first harvest. A lot of people tend to starve fairly early on in the game because they don't know about that feature. You can just harvest things from the map. See here, look, there's a whole batch of fruit right there, my guy. There was a guy just sleeping in the middle of that fruit, and we could have just picked it all up and used that to feed. Well, we only have a population of 15. That could feed our people for a little while on its own. Alright, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut again. We're going to wait for the first caravan to turn up. And then we'll see how that influences our economy. Alright, so it took a little while, but my first shipment of pottery just arrived. And it reminded me to mention something I forgot to mention earlier, right? So when you're waiting for imports to arrive, it can take a while because they have to cross the map, but it can also take a while because you have to buy things in batches of 32. You can see here when you mouse over this that we don't have enough money for another shipment, and that's because we can only order a minimum of 32 in each batch. So we need almost 2,000 credits to buy pottery, just because that's how much 32 units costs. We can't just buy an individual piece, for example. So if it's taking a little while, be sure to check by mousing over this in the import depot whether or not you have enough for your first shipment. So there it is. We've got our shipment of pottery right there. We've exported all sorts of eggs and things, and while I was waiting for my shipment to arrive, I set myself up a little carpenter here. I cleared these walls. They weren't cleared automatically earlier, so I just broke them down using the deconstruction tool in here, the dismantle structure, and then I replaced them with a ceiling in this screen here, just so that they can easily walk between these two buildings. But that's about it. That's all the basics. From here we can grow fruit, we can grow vegetables, we can harvest all these various resources we've seen around the map, and using the import-export system we can more or less acquire whatever we need by importing the things we can't produce and exporting the things we can. Anyway, that's it for me. I hope this was helpful, and I will see you all in the Songs of Six Discord. Y'all have a lovely day.